Psycho is known for its shocking shower scene, but watching it again, the shower curtain itself got me thinking about Psycho in a whole new way. Hello, I'm Kevin Harris, and I help people understand themselves by helping them understand the stories that resonate with them.
We all go a little mad sometimes.
Now, I've often heard it said that Psycho is about voyeurism, and the audience is the voyeur. And while I agree with this, we see Marion in a state of undress 3 times in the first 45 minutes. I also think it is more than that. The movie begins with a wide shot of a city, Phoenix, Arizona. But then the camera moves from a public view into a very private one, a hotel room, where a couple has been intimate with each other. This, at the time it was made, would have already been shocking, and not just because they weren't married, but because we, the audience, were being shown things that public eyes should not see. And throughout Psycho, Hitchcock keeps doing this. He keeps moving us across boundaries.
Eating in an office is just too officious. I have the parlor back here.
All right.
In our lives, we frequently move between public spaces and more intimate spaces. For example, we may not invite a salesperson into our home, but a friend is always welcome. And we don't go into an area marked employees only unless we work there. We understand intuitively that different spaces allow different degrees of access. Some places are open to everyone, others require an invitation. And some places are so private that entering them without permission feels like a violation. In Psycho, we see this even in the real estate office where Marion works. The boss walks in the door with a client from an outside public space into the more private space of a business. Marion and her coworker are positioned almost like guards or cherubim at another threshold, the boss's office. In this case, the man is a known client.
Come on, Tom.
Who first invades Marion's personal space.
Are you unhappy?
Not inordinately.
And is then invited back behind closed doors to have a private conversation. Marion is soon welcomed into this more private space as well, and entrusted with money and responsibility. She has been granted access and given trust. And of course, we know that she breaks that trust. Her decision eventually leads her away from the ordinary world and towards the Bates Motel. Marion is given what she thinks is a private room, but we soon learn that it isn't private at all. Norman removes a picture from the wall and looks through a hidden opening into her room, and we look with him. This is where the idea that the audience is the voyeur becomes so uncomfortable, because Hitchcock does not allow us to simply condemn Norman for looking. He makes us look too. We are taken across a boundary we know we should not cross. Then Marion enters an even more private space, the bathroom. And within that bathroom, she closes the shower curtain. It is a boundary within a boundary within a boundary. She is inside a private motel room, inside a bathroom, behind a curtain. And that is precisely where the final boundary is violated. The curtain is pulled aside, and Marion at her most vulnerable is murdered. I would argue that this is part of what makes the murder so much more upsetting than so many other murders that we have seen depicted on screen. It isn't simply the violence, it is the intimate setting. It is the violation of a place that should have been safe. The horror comes from desecration. Something private has been invaded, something protected has been exposed. The curtain was supposed to mean something, and once I began thinking about Psycho in terms of these boundaries, the old house on the hill began to look very different to me. Because the Bates house seems to take this idea of increasingly private spaces and turn it into an entire architecture. Before making this comparison, I want to be careful about what I mean by it. I'm not suggesting that Norman Bates' house is somehow equivalent to a sacred temple, or that the holy rituals of the ancient world should be reduced to imagery in a horror film. Quite the opposite. What interests me is the way Psycho seems to construct a kind of inverted sacred space. Ancient temples often organize space according to degrees of holiness. You moved from the ordinary world into increasingly restricted places, crossing thresholds and sometimes ascending a mountain toward a space that was more private, more guarded, and more sacred. Architecture and location itself taught you that you were approaching something set apart. Norman Bates' world has a strangely similar structure, but with the moral direction reversed. First, there is the highway, the ordinary public world. Then there is the Bates Motel, a place where strangers are temporarily welcomed. Behind the motel rises the infamous house, a decaying Second Empire Victorian mansion with a sinister Gothic revival atmosphere, inspired by Edward Hopper's 1925 painting. But I digress. To reach it, you have to ascend the hill, you climb the steps, you cross the porch, then you open the door and step over another threshold into the private space of somebody's home. And once inside, there are still more divisions, including a staircase leading upward. And at the top of that staircase is an even more private space, Mother's room. So the movement upward is not an ascent toward holiness, it is an ascent toward desecration. The closer we come to the most protected place in Norman's world, the closer we come to the corruption at its center. And I can't help but notice the little cherub-like statue near the bottom of the staircase. It almost seems to function like a guardian standing near the threshold. When Arbogast enters the house without permission and begins climbing those stairs, another kind of guardian appears, Mother. Arbogast ascends toward the forbidden space, and Mother violently stops him from reaching it. Everything has been reversed. The guardian does not protect a sacred place from corruption. The guardian protects the corruption itself. But there is another boundary crossed in Norman's world that I think is even more disturbing.
Norman Bates's mother has been dead and buried in Green Lawn Cemetery for the past 10 years.
The boundary between life and death.
He stole her corpse. A weighted coffin was buried.
The stuffed birds surrounding Norman like animal sacrifices
You eat like a bird.
silently signal what is to come. They were once living things that have now been killed, preserved and arranged.
He hid the body in the fruit cellar. Even treated it to keep it as well as it would keep.
She's as harmless as one of those stuffed birds.
A detail made even more unsettling by the fact that Marion's last name is Crane, another bird.
You want to tell me you saw Norman Bates's mother?
But it had to be.
He'd walk about the house, sit in her chair, speak in her voice.
Norman cannot allow his mother to rest in peace.
Me down.
He tried to be his mother.
And that brings us back to voyeurism. Because voyeurism is also a refusal to respect separation. Marion believes she is alone. Norman looks anyway. She closes the curtain, and he parts that veil, which may be why the shower curtain is such a powerful image. It is such a thin thing. It cannot really stop anyone who is determined to cross it. Its power comes from the shared understanding that it marks a boundary, that someone on the other side has asked not to be seen. Maybe that is part of what Psycho is really about. Not simply the desire to look, but the failure to recognize that some things are not ours to see. Some spaces are not ours to enter, and some boundaries are sacred precisely because they protect what belongs to someone else. And that is the meaning on the screen. And if you'd like to know more about my take on haunted houses and sacred spaces and overcoming fear, I've created a course that I call the Haunted House Exit Plan that you can purchase if you're interested. The link is below. Thank you very much.
Bob, run out and get yourself some lunch, will you?
That's okay, Sam. I brought it with me.
Run out and eat it.